Hello, beautiful people. Miss Freund here. I wanted to just start off by telling you that you have made it. You are amazing. You're maybe a little bit into reading Other Words from Home or kind of wrapping your mind around what we're just doing with the book, Other Words from Home, in your class with either me or Miss Leslie. As a 70s student, as explained kind of in the intro video, the idea isn't that you're doing much more work, but that you're just having a deeper level of understanding and knowledge and critical thinking when going into reading this book. So in addition to the literacy work that you're doing with this, just the comprehension and talking about the plot and the conflict and the themes happening in the book, the idea for trimester 2 is that you're going to learn what it means to read with a critical lens. You could probably use some context clues to even begin to understand what that means. But the objective for this week is for you to just wrap your mind around what does it mean to read with a critical lens. So, critical lens. Go on, you say. What does it mean to read? So the first things we have to consider, let me move my little video up. The first things that you have to consider as a reader and as a scholar is that when you pick up a book, when you open up your social media and read like a news headline, when you read anything, right? We are never reading without this fact that we are ourselves. We are our unique selves, meaning we have identities. We have racial identities. We have gender identities. We have socioeconomic status identities. We have familial identities. We have where we live identities. All those things. There are so many things that make up who we are in any given moment. We are never not those things when we go into reading something. Another really important thing to remember is that you have this ability to, first of all, change your identities and morph identities organically over the course of your life. Sometimes we purposefully change who we are, and sometimes those things just happen to us, right? And sometimes we realize more things about ourselves. And so as we develop this understanding of who we are, we have to think about critically how that affects what we read, how we read it. You have this ability to read something today that perhaps you read differently yesterday. Maybe that's because of your mood. Maybe that's because of your identity. Maybe that's because of what's going on in your environment or who you're surrounded by, right? And you may always, you should always maybe be open-minded to reading things in the future that maybe you were turned off by in the past. So kind of that open-mindedness and understanding our own identities as we go into reading is just like a really important baseline norm to think about when going in to reading with a critical lens. So what does it even mean to be a critical lens reader? So when I say have your notes pulled up while you do this, you'll notice that in the 7E week 1 stuff, you're going to want to open up your notes because if you have these notes up, you're going to kind of understand even more of what I'm talking about. So let me find. All right. So what does it mean to read with a critical lens? Every novel, every text, every article, every podcast, everything we take in can be read with a critical lens. A critical lens means that you're reading with a specific purpose to notice particular ways that the author, or maybe there's pictures, so an illustrator, or a speaker, if it's just a podcast or something, is commenting on a specific group or society because of the way they portray them. What that means is that while you are reading, in this class, Other Words for Home, which is the novel we're reading right now together, you're going to read with this specific lens where you analyze how the author is portraying specific genders, how the author is portraying the youth, meaning like the ages, particularly maybe the younger kids, and how the author is commenting on race and ethnicity / culture. When you are reading, your job is to read through a critical lens so that you don't just take things as truth, right? I'm sure you've read stuff before, you've listened to stuff before, and you go, even though that person sounds like they know what they're talking about, should I believe what they're saying? And is that a truth for me? So let's take an even deeper look into what I'm talking about. how do you do this? How do you read with a critical lens? So the author, the person specifically that wrote this book is Jasmine Warga, but the author is representing the character. In this book, Jude is the protagonist, is the main person, right, is the main character. And the author in whatever you're reading is representing a character in a way that may not be accurate according to you as a reader. When you read with a critical lens, you ask yourself questions as you read. You ask yourself, because of the way the author is portraying this character, let's say of a specific religion in a certain way, what are they implying? Are they particularly representing the character in a way that you agree with? So let me just kind of dive in more deeply even with this next slide. Let's say that you were, as you go along, you are assigned the gender lens. And you look at how Jasmine Warga is particularly portraying a person who identifies as female in this book. The main character identifies as female, Jude. And let's say that the author is portraying them as like a really whiny person. That's not necessarily what happens in the book, but let's just say that. You would ask yourself, is the author saying that all females are whiny, people that identify as female, because this particular girl in this book is whiny, W-H-I-N-Y? You are essentially asking yourself, is the way that the author is portraying this race, or this gender, or this age notable? Do I agree with how this person is portraying this? This will make even more sense in this next slide where I say practice for your own understanding. You'll notice that I have linked, we've linked 3 commercials. There's a Jimmy John's commercial, there's a Burger King commercial, and a Nike commercial. Particularly in the Jimmy John's commercial, just the very first one, it portrays Mexican Americans as very messy, chaotic people because of the way that the commercial is set. You'll notice in the Burger King commercial, there is a lot of commentary on what it means to be a man. You'll notice in the Nike commercial, it portrays a girl who is having to break free of age and gender stereotypes. So essentially what you're doing is you're asking yourself this question. Because the author portrays, let's say, Muslim Americans in a blank way, they believe or want me to think what about that age, or what about that gender, or what about that. What you need to know right now is that this first week 1, you don't have to master any of anything I've just taught you. It's just this idea that you're wrapping your mind around the fact that a critical lens means that you're asking yourself, is the author doing a good job of portraying a certain race or gender or age in a way that I agree with in the book? That is kind of what you're doing. So as you read Other Words for Home, as you continue to read this is how you're going to apply it to the book. There's kind of 3 parts to each week. You're going to, every week when you tune into your 7E work, you're going to learn about a specific lens. The 3 lenses that we're going to focus on are the youth lens, the gender lens, and the race culture lens. You're going to learn about a specific lens each week. And then you're going to apply, with total instruction on how to do that, you're going to apply that lens while you read that week's section or that week's, pages assigned in your literacy class. Then, really the only work that you're doing after you read and apply that lens is you're going to record your thoughts in a weekly reflection Google form that will be inside of your 7E learning slides where you found this video. What's next? So after you get done, literally at the end of this video, you're going to make your own copy of those resource notes found in the Literacy 7E learning slides. Then you're going to email me or Miss Leslie with any clarifying questions. And then really the only work that you're doing is you're going to fill out the reflection Google form found right under in the same slide where you found this video. You're going to fill out the reflection Google form found in the 7E learning slides. Just to remind you, you don't have to master or have your head completely wrapped around all this stuff now, but you're going to essentially, this is just an intro to what it means to read with a critical literary lens. You're amazing. Email us with any clarifying questions and fill out that Google form. Good work.